Okay guys, so what I'm trying to do in this video is I want to explain how we can use Google Maps API. Um, but I don't want to do it structure in a way that like, it kind of gets boring and stuff. So what I'm thinking is I want to explain overall how it works, and then we can code here a project using Codex so you can see how you could implement it if you're pipe coding yourself, right? Or if you're just if you want to understand how the API works, I think that would be simpler to understand doing seeing me watching me doing the thing here, right? So I'm thinking what would be a good example, like a good use case here. And I think we can start with I think we could do it in Google Sheets. We could have a Google Sheet here. Let's call this Google Maps API Live. And I think that would be cool. You could see Google Maps API Live, and we can have live sheet here like that. And I think what we can do here is a use case that I've had with clients is that they usually have orders, right? So we have a timestamp, right? And then we have here order one, and then here we have the client name, let's say, I don't know, my name, for example. And then here we have I don't know, the product, right? So product one or whatever the person order. And then here we have the address, right? An address one and address two, I guess. So here's no, actually where's the address where this order needs to go. So I think what we could do here, an automation, so I can showcase how this could work, pretty simple, pretty straightforward, is that we could have a form that receives these orders, right? So we have a form, and then once the client inputs those orders, it goes to a Google Sheet like this one. And then something else that we could implement is that, so we have the form, we have the Google Sheet, and then we need we need to sort these orders. Let's say we're doing this per day, right? So every day we kind of get the orders for the day, and we just have a list of orders, so we can send that to the delivery person so they can deliver these orders, right? So what we could do here is we need to implement Google Maps API, right? So it can do this sorting. But the issue that I've also noticed is that sometimes sometimes the issue also is that people kind of input the addresses in these forms, and they don't even check if they input the address correctly. They don't even care. So what I'm thinking is we could use AI, some sort of AI layer that can do some checks, right? So you're gonna check the address, and it's gonna make sure that, well, the address is correct before we send it to Google Maps. So we could we could do something like that, so we can make sure, because the issue with the API, Google Maps API, is that if you don't send a correct address, it will kind of try to guess, but that means that doesn't work, right? It needs to be the exact address, otherwise we kind of mess up the whole automation. But okay, so we have the AI layer, and then if everything is fine, we send to Google Maps API, and then we kind of go back to Google Sheets and send, and we create a tab, final tab. I think that would be a good flow, right? So we have the form, we got the Google Sheet, Google Maps API, the AI layer, and the final tab, all right? So I think we could do that, and I think this will be a cool walkthrough of how the API works, or how to implement AI layers and stuff like that. And I'm going to do it here in a Google Sheet, pretty simple. But in case you want to do this with a Python or a backend, because I think if you're doing this is straightforward enough that you can have it in a Google Sheet. If it gets more complex than this, I think I would recommend that you do it with Python, and you kind of create a proper backend, right? I think in the future I will be doing some more complex automations. So I will be doing like some Docker, Python stuff. But I think for now, I will stick to something simple so you can understand ideally how this works, right? So we need to use AppScript here, right? So for example, as you go to extensions, AppScript, and then once you click in AppScript, you should be able to see the code. Here you can add code and stuff. But I mean, the cool thing about AI now, Codex, Cloud Code, or whatever, is like you can just by code this. I mean, of course, like what I recommend is that you understand the APIs and the architecture of everything that you're trying to do first before you start vibe coding, because the issue is that if you don't like if you like right away start like vibe coding, Codex or whatever will tell you like the first thing that they come up with, because they don't there are multiple, like there are 100 ways of doing something, and if you ask too general, they will just implement it in a way that maybe is not the best way of doing it, right? So that's why I always suggest that it's better to understand the API first, so you know what to ask, and then when you know what to ask, stuff becomes so much simpler. So what I'm thinking here is like I will explain how we could automate this as much as possible, so you don't really need to like fucking be coding by hand, right? But okay, so let's do it. So here are some things that we need to keep in mind, right? So how can we access AppScript using Codex? Because the issue is like, you could access Codex with you could access some tools like I don't know, like Google Sheets and all that stuff, like with MCPs, and you gotta create like these plugins and all that stuff. And I think that works, but I think it's not robust enough. And there is not a plugin that I'm aware of that you can connect to AppScript easily. So I will like what I'm trying to explain here is like you wanna learn the API and the APIs in general, so you get the keys, and with the keys, Codex can do stuff. So you don't need MCP stuff. You don't need like a plugin or something like that. You only need the API key and understanding the API. Once you have that, you're good to go. You can do whatever you want. So for example, here we will need the API key for AppScript, an API key that can access AppScript, so we can ask Codex to write stuff here. Also, we need like the API key to have access to Google Sheets, so we can also add stuff. So what else? I think we only need that. We will need the API key, of course, from Google Maps, and we will need an API key for the AI layer. However, it will work actually we also need forms, because we need to create the form. I don't want to do the form manually, so I will ask Codex to do the form. Like these 2 plus AppScript, we need a refresh token. This one we need the API key. So if you don't know what a refresh token is, so basically a refresh token is like you have a refresh token and you have an access token, right? That's pretty like the API usually work with that, like refresh tokens, access tokens. Some of them just have API keys like that. So this one are like the simplest, just getting an API key, like for example here, Google Maps or like the AI layer. Those are like the simplest, because you literally just go somewhere, create something, add some details, and then you get an API key. The more complicated ones are these ones, like the ones that you need to get a refresh token, because a refresh token pretty much is like a token that you get to get an access token afterwards, and with this access token you can access the API. The thing is to get the refresh token, you need to do some authentication, and depending on the API, sometimes it's simple, sometimes it's not, so you gotta do a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's cool. So let's get this API. I already know how to do it. I've done it 100 times, so I will explain it pretty quickly how to get this refresh token. So everything that needs to come, everything regarding Google APIs, always refer to Google Cloud, right? So you go to Google Cloud, you Google like that, and then you go to console here. So if it is the first time that you're doing this, most probably you don't have literally anything here. So that's fine. So you can just create a project here. As you can see, I have a bunch of projects here. So what I'm going to do though is that I'm going to like create a project so I can explain everything. So you can just create a project here. We can just give it a name. So let's just name everything like this. And then you don't need to put an organization there, just create. And you see here that we have like this is loading. So let's wait a little bit once this is finished. Okay, we're good. So now select project here. And that's it. So now we need to do like all the APIs that I mentioned, right? So we need Google Maps. So the one for Google Maps is called Routes API. So we have two APIs here. We have Routes and we have another one that is called Distance API. They do different things, right? So, but in this case, we need this one, Routes. So just go to Routes, click there. And for this one, you just need to enable that, right? So you click there, the API, the enable, and this is the one. This one is a simple one. You don't need to like do the refresh token yet. So you need to select a billing account. If you don't have a billing account, pretty much a billing account means that you need to connect your card. You need to add your payment details to Google Cloud. Once you do that, that becomes a billing account, and you can use that. You can attach this billing account to projects in general. For example, this one. So you see, I already have one because for all these tests. But if you don't have any will ask you just create one. Pretty much asks for the payment details. That's it. But again, like these APIs, all of these APIs, they have like a free quota. Like you can test a bunch, and you won't get charged. So you don't need to worry that you will get charged right away. Okay. But again, like if you're using if you're just testing, you won't get charged. But like if you are literally have this in production, most probably you will get charged. So you need to check the quotas. So for example, let me see. I think I closed that. Let me see if I can go back so I can show you. Like all the APIs have this before you enable the API. So for example, if we check like some random one, let's say Drive API, you see always here in overview, you have like what you have. Like for example, this one is free, so this one really don't work. So let's see another one. Let's say Distance, like the one that I was explaining. Distance. Yeah, it's called Distance. Yeah, this Distance matrix. So you see like all of them come with like this pricing here. And you can see like, for example, you see that we have free like until 1K calls, meaning like you can make a lot of calls though for free. And once you go beyond that, you start going that look after 5K count starts like $10. Still like it's not that expensive, but again, and this is advanced, right? So if you go to like the basic one, it's even cheaper. Yeah, that's 5. This one is 10, yeah. But yeah, all of those APIs work the same. So like before you enable API, you check here the pricing, and you know. But like usually what I've noticed, like you can test a bunch, and it doesn't really affect. So okay, let's go back here. So we have the billing account. So we set that account, and okay, that's an issue. I think I need to delete projects because I have so many though. Actually, I will delete projects. Let me see. Actually, I don't know how to delete a project. Projects. Okay, I deleted like most of my projects here, and I just left this one because this account I just have it for these videos. So I think now I should go. I should be good to go. So let's try to do it again. The Routes API and on manage. Well, in this case, you can see that now I need to create a billing account, let's see. And then that's fine. Yeah, so the issue that I was having before is that I just had so many projects, like for all these tests. And like there is a limit that you can add a billing account with for projects. So I kind of went beyond that. So what I did was just deleting all the projects. So now, so this is the API key, right? So I will save it here handy somewhere so I can use it later. So now we need like the refresh token again that I explained to get like to be able to access AppScript, Forms, and the Google Sheet. So what I do to do that, well, in this case, it's asking me for like protect your API key. I will just, okay, this is for, actually I will just say like maybe later. I don't really need it. Okay, and what else? So how, like we need to get the refresh token for these APIs, right? So this one, for like what I'm thinking here is, so we need to enable all of these APIs, but and then we need to like a flow. So let's see, but you don't need to enable all of them at once. You need to select one only. You click and enable. Let's start with Sheets API. So this one, you see here that it says create credentials, right? So we need to get a client ID and a client secret, and with that we can use it to validate the other APIs. So let's create credentials here. And then this is like, yeah, let's say Shade API. This is for like user data, application data. You can see here what it's actually for. So you can see that when you don't need to access user data, you can just get an API key like this one that we did, like this one, no? This one. You see, it was pretty straightforward. But when you need to like access data, like emails, like for example, Gmail API, Google Sheets API, all that stuff, but you need to read, like literally read data from the user. So in that case, that's why you need to do like all this flow, because it's like more sensitive data, right? So you click next here. Let's see what else. Like they're changing this all the time though. So that's why also kind of like yeah, this user interface changes all the time. So let's see. So what is support email? Myself. I don't need to fill this. Actually, I need another email here. For the developer account, I'll just put myself again. And then here, well, this is for the scopes, but I will explain a simpler way of doing this. So you don't need to worry about this. You can ignore it, save. And then here you need to select, this is just for a web application. Again, the name will be the same one. But this part is important, the authorized redirect URIs. So pretty much when you authenticate, right? So you need to like do like this flow. So basically the flow is that you will select what are the scopes that you want to authenticate, and you do it here in this website that is called Developers Playground. It's pretty cool that you can get these refresh tokens here. This is simpler than doing it with Google Cloud. But here, once you authenticate, it's going to take you somewhere where you authenticate all the scopes, right? It's going to be like a pop-up, like typical pop-up. And then it needs to redirect somewhere, right? And that's what it's asking here. Like, what will be the redirect URIs? So if you don't have that, it won't work. So usually what I do is I just put this email here, this URL, the same one from developers. Actually, I was asking before how to delete projects, but I just did it with Codex. It's simpler. Well, okay, so you input here something, but like the thing is, what I've noticed, like sometimes it works with this slash, sometimes it doesn't work with the slash. So what I usually do is that I input both, so I don't get like these dumb errors. And that's it, now you can download your credentials and do stuff. But like, if you do this, you will get a service account, and I mean, you can do, like, you don't need it. Just ignore that for now. I don't want to confuse you. So just ignore that, and then you go here to auth consent. So here, you need to go where it go, like where it says audience. And this part is important though, because if you don't publish the app, you won't be able to use this tool. It will throw you some dumb errors. So what you do is that you publish the app, confirm, and then you go to clients, and then here we have our client ID and client secret. So you can just click there and see it. So you see we have the client ID here, and then we have secret, this one. So you just copy a client ID here. Let's go to the playground, and then you see this little gear here, click there. Here, select your own auth accounts. Then we select here auth client, we import the one that we just got. And then client secret, let's just use this one here. Same thing, you see, client secret. So again, make sure that you polish the app before doing this, otherwise it won't work. So we have this part, this first part is fine, client ID and client secret. Now we need to select the APIs that we want to use. So this is pretty cool because again, like you can literally authenticate a bunch of APIs at once, and you don't need to like, you know, go one by one here on cloud. So we need here sheets, so we can read the sheet, right? So you can see here all the things that we can do. We can, for example, only give read-only access, only spreadsheets, blah, blah. But I don't care. I will input like, I want to have access to all drive, so we can delete, edit, everything, right? But again, like if you want to have like more strict access, you can just select other accesses here. So we have sheets, so we also need app script. So we can also edit code here. So you can see here that we have app script. And then here we have a bunch of stuff, right? So actually, let me see, because this one is tricky. So we need this one, script projects, so we can see the projects of the script. And we also need this one, deployments. Well, no, I don't think we need deployments though, because deployments will be when you have, like, for example, you want to use this deploy here, but we don't need it yet. So, I mean, we won't use it here in this project, so that's fine. Yeah, just let me double check. Yeah, because I have some scripts here where I'm using that, but it seems that I only need, actually I wanna, let me just make sure that I'm getting this right. So let's just ask Codex, right? So we need to, let me stop this a second. I wanna, yeah, if I remember correctly, it's just that one that I selected, but I just want to make sure. Because if you don't select the scope that you need, I think, yeah, I just need this one. Yeah, it's the one that I selected. Yeah, I think we're good. So yeah, it's just that one. Because yeah, you can do a bunch of stuff, right? So we can have, like, for example, yeah, again, like this for deployments. This one is for, like, for example, if you're editing some privacy stuff. Yeah, we're good. So we only need that one. And then what is the other one? So we need AppScript, Google Sheets, and also we need forms. So this is forms, it's pretty straightforward. Select that one and then the first one. Again, you can do a bunch of stuff here. Actually, I think this one is the same one as the Google Drive, the Google Sheets one that I selected. So both are the same. Once you have that, you can just click here and authorize APIs. Then it will take you to this pop-up. Again, like if you didn't publish the app, you won't get this pop-up. It will throw you an error saying that you are not a developer email or something. So that's how you know that you didn't publish the app. So you click here and you need to do this flow. So advanced, connect to Maps API. And you can see here the scopes that it's asking for, right? So we can edit all those Drive files and then also app script projects. I'm saying yes, and then continue. So now we need to select this button here. You click there and voila, we have this refresh token. So this is what we need, right? So you can ignore this access token. This one will be, you can see here that expires in 35,000 seconds. So not really useful. We need this refresh token that doesn't have expiry period, so we can use it to get these access tokens. That's pretty much the logic with these refresh tokens, right? So they don't expire. We can use them like always to get these access tokens that they expire, right? But it doesn't really matter because every time that we make a call, we're gonna get a new one. So yeah. Let me see. Just make sure that So let's copy that and we save it somewhere here. So actually, let me see. So we need, this will be the refresh token, right? But we need the client ID, that we need to pass that to Codex, and we need the client secret. So let's just have that handy so we can use it with Codex. Also make sure that when you're pasting this client ID, it doesn't go with the HTTP. You see there is an HTTP there, and that's an issue because, like, what I'm saying is like, if you're moving this around, make sure that it doesn't get pasted with this HTTP, because I mean, Codex will understand that it's a client ID, so he will remove that. But if you're like, for example, pasting that HTTP here when you were doing the authentication here, it wanna throw you an error. Just make sure that it doesn't have this HTTP, whatever. And then the client ID here. And voila, I think with that, we're good to go. We also need to get the AI layer API. Yeah, we need to get this API. And to get this API, what we do is that we can use multiple APIs here, right? So we could use, for example, ChatGPT, we could use Claude, if you like Claude, we could use Gemini, like whatever API that you want, you could, like whatever LLM that you like, you could use it here. But also there's another one that I kind of like, it's called OpenRouter. So OpenRouter, we will see OpenRouter, basically this one here, OpenRouter AI. This one is like a website that is like, it's like an aggregator of LLMs. So yeah, like for example, if you click here and explore models, you see that all the models that you can access. So you have Grok, you have Qwen, this one, you have ChatGPT, you have Claude, you can see here Opus. So pretty much you can use whatever API you want. But the only thing that you need to change is, like, for example, if you're using Codex, you only need one API here, right? So for example, once we get the API, if we go back, you see we get like get API key and you get the API. But if with that, you can just be like, okay, so let's use Opus, or let's use ChatGPT, let's use Gemini, right? If you are changing this multiple times, and you don't need to be like, okay, let's go to Gemini, get an API key, then you go to a ChatGPT, whatever, and you get an API key, right? So that's pretty useful if you're like testing with multiple, or like you want to keep it like super simple. But but it works the same, right? Like you can literally, go to OpenAI, get an API key, and it will be the same thing. So let's just use open router here. Because yeah, I know you guys, a lot of you like different APIs. Mainly this because I was using some tests. So you click here in new API key. So I will also input this one here, this name. And then no expiration, I don't want an expiration here. And then click, and that's it, you get the API key. So this is the one for the AI layer. So this is open router. And that's it, with that we have everything that we need to start building this app. Yep. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so basically we already have this that we got. All right, so basically we got already this, right? So now we need to start working on it. So what we can do is like, I think the simplest is that we will start with Codex. We will ask Codex to first create this form. And then once we have the form, we will ask him to like literally just fill up this form with a lot of dummy data so we can have like some orders here. And then once we have that, we can ask him to like create the code, which will be like pretty much sending the data to a Maps API and the AI layer, right? And then just returning that with a new sheet with the orders. So what I'm thinking is that we can have two tabs. One will have the orders, and this other one will have also the orders sorted, but also maybe we can have another one, like another block below that that will be like what are the orders that we need to check, right? I think that would be a good idea. Okay, so let's just open Codex and see. Okay, so we have Codex here, and basically what we can do is pretty much let me see what else we need. Let's start with the form. So basically, as I mentioned before, we already have these three things here, and with this we can actually just ask him to create a form and just connect it to a Google Sheet. Yeah, but I'm wondering if we should create a new one or just can create this one here. I think we can just whatever. Let's see, create a form, a Google form. Create a Google form with these questions. And then we have this, right? So we will have, so the Google Sheet looks like, and then we have timestamp, then we have the order number, and then we have client name, product or products in case they're ordering multiple, and then we have the address. Yeah, and then for products you can just make a dummy and just some random products, 5 products. It just starts 5 products, and then yeah, and for the address just free text. Yeah, we don't want to complicate because like if you don't specify that, maybe Codex will like create like postal code and then address number and then address blah blah blah. It's gonna create a bunch of fields, and we don't need that. I mean, if you wanted to have like that, you could do it that way, right? But I will just keep it like super simple here. So I think that's it. So use the below. Client ID and client secret to this. use the API, forms API. And also, actually, something else that I want to ask him is like this: like, can we use this sheet I already created? Actually, I don't want to do that though. Let's just create a fresh one. That's it. Whatever. So let's do that. For the ones who are wondering, like, why do I have like set up like this? Like high. Let me see if I can show you this. Why high and the speed and all that stuff. Like, I think high is pretty good. Like, if you go extra high, I think I get sometimes a little bit too like start hallucinating and stuff. So I don't know. I don't like that. I think high is pretty good. I've read on X that medium is also really good, but I haven't tested it yet. So I just stick to high, which is the one that I use like most of the time. And speed is fast. You can change the speed here to fast. I like that. It's just, I mean, I don't know if that really like makes a super speed, but I mean, I use it always. Okay, so let's see. So basically, you're just gonna, what I'm thinking is like we will create this form. I mean, you could technically ask him for everything, but you know what? I like doing this when I'm like creating automations like these, like automating things. I think in general, it's good that you do it like step by step, right? Like you don't want to literally start like, hey, I want the form, I want this bullshit, I want this API, I want that, because like you need to test each step. And I think yeah, it's like, I think it's a good way of doing it this way. Might take a little bit longer, but I think you are sure that the stuff is working. Oh yeah, I don't have, that's important. It's saying that we don't have, I don't have the forms API, which is true. So I will do it right here. See. And it's, yeah, let me see. So yeah, let's do it very quickly. So we have forms API. I think I forgot to do that before. So I enable forms API. What else was saying? Couldn't, because we need forms API in AppScript, enable, what else? Drive, yeah. And Drive is important because it's the one that where all the Google Sheets live. So technically needs to access Drive to be able to create a Google Sheet, edit a Google Sheet, and all of that, right? So we all, yeah, I think we're good with that. Done. Let's see. And I have this cat, so cute. Gonna help some with this, like. Okay, while we wait, we can just, play with the cats here. So let's see. Saying that finished. So let me see, where is the order? So this is the order, I guess. Yeah, so this is the order. This is the form, sorry. So we have the form, the description. I mean, you could edit this as well, right? So we don't really need it. I mean, let's make it, yeah, the order. So doesn't matter. And that's it. I mean, we want to keep it super simple. Right now it's kind of like saying, let's see, refresh this. Okay, so we don't have it. So let's test it. So what we can do is like, I mean, if you're wondering how you can connect like a Google form to like a Google Sheet, just go here to links, link to sheets, and then we can create a Google Sheet. Okay, got it. We can use one that, I mean, we could use this one. This is what I was wondering. So I don't want to be creating like a bunch of, no way, yeah, I can select one. Let's use this one. Okay, so basically this is the one and this is okay. Let me close this. So we have it here. That's basically pretty much the same thing that we have here, timestamp, order, products. Well, we don't have the order ID. Let's see what happens. Let's fill one. Let's copy this and let's just fill it. Class done. Let's see that's an address test. Let's see. Yeah, we didn't get the order ID. Well, I think two ways of doing it is like with the order ID. You know, one is that we can ask Codex to add like some app script stuff. So it kind of creates an order ID every time that it gets an order. That's one way of doing it. But you know, another way of doing it is just keeping it super simple though. And we use a formula. So we could use like, just like a number, you know. So we have like with 1, and then this just plus 1. I mean, we could do that. You kind of go to settings and then you remove that, but I don't understand why it's asking for that. I mean, let's just make it like this. I don't wanna. I mean, technically we don't need this, but I mean, I already said how to, like, we were going to use order ID, so that's why I'm kind of like explaining this, but I mean, this can be like that, and then we have this plus 1. That's pretty much the thing, you know, you just put it like that. But like right now there are no orders there, so what we can do is, you know, what we can do is this, because you know things like right now you don't have this and you don't know. I know what, look, we are going to do this. Actually, I will just ask Codex, give me a formula, right, formula. Kind of numbers the orders automatically. So if there is an order, column A. If there is an order in column A, the number appears, but if not, then empty. And I'm asking like an array formula, because when you're doing like array formulas though, yeah, that's pretty sweet. So that's the thing, you know, like when you're doing like array formulas, this part here, it means that it will populate this as long as this data here. So for example, if you see there is adding data, automatically, like you don't need to be copy pasting this formula over and over again down below, right? That's the thing with these array formulas. Yeah, I think that's it, you know, so we don't need to overcomplicate this. Let me see if I can copy this formula thing here. So it looks the same. Well, not really. I mean, but you get the idea, right? You can change this to whatever you want. Actually, what we can do is like hide this, so it looks good. I mean, that's good enough. Um, okay, so we good with that. We have the form. So now I will ask just Codex. Okay. Okay, so well, actually, that's for testing because I was going to ask him to fill out this with me data, but I don't think we need it yet. So now I will just ask him. All right, so now I need app script codes for that sheet because, and the idea is that, yeah, and the idea is that you see the addresses there for each order for the day. We need to get those addresses, send them to Google Routes API, and then sort them by time. So create a new tab with 2 blocks. First block has the orders sorted, and then second block will be like a check we do to the addresses. So we make sure they are valid. This check use open router API. Yeah, and then that's pretty much what we need here, open router. So we make sure we're valid, and yeah, let's just be a little bit more. The check API. So the second block is just flagging whatever is off. And then, you know, what I'm thinking is like, what I'm thinking is where to put these API keys though. Because you could do it like saving, like there are 2 ways of saving this. Like one is like the secure way and the other one is like the one that is not secure. So I guess let's do it the secure way, which is like putting these API keys like in properties. So basically it's like AppScript has some property or things that you can just save their stuff. Because you could also save those API keys here, like in a Google Sheet and access them. But I will explain you, like for example, let me explain, let's create this first. And then, okay, and put those API keys securely in properties. I think that's fine, but actually let's make something. For the ones that don't know and use Codex, you can use this called a Go. This is pretty sweet. Basically what it does is like, I mean, what I've noticed is like technically you could just not use goal, but when you use goal, it kind of takes a little bit more time, but it's more precise. Kind of like, you know, goes thing by thing. And the more precise you are with the prompt, the better this works. But I think you can see here that it's sent as goal, you see? So let's see. You know what I think what I forgot to say is that we need to pass use this project for the AppScript count. And no need to create files locally. The thing is like, I think if you don't ask for this, it's gonna create the files in your computer, and then it's gonna then create the files also in AppScript in the project. But this is just a demo, so I don't really need these files here because that's gonna be trash. And this GS, that's pretty much the extension for the AppScript code. So like GS extension, you will see. You see the extension deploy AppScript file. So that's pretty much that's the logic for yeah. Yeah, you see it was already creating files here. I mean, you could have the files in your computer if you need them for something, but if I'm just like doing something quickly, what I prefer is just using the API directly, and I just push directly the changes to AppScript using the API. But if I wanted to have some control, maybe you want to use GitHub or something, and you want to be committing the changes along the way. Well, you could have the files locally, right? And then you commit, and then you push to GitHub, and then you do the changes, and then whatever, and then you keep going that way, right? But in this case, we're just creating this like this. So let's see. Yeah, that's the boring thing, that you gotta wait for it to finish when you do like this goal. You see, it takes longer. But I mean, it's better this way, I feel, because like you make sure that it's actually testing stuff. And when you see in here, it's pretty much, yeah, when you see in here, it's like it's using a plugin that is called Chrome, I think what it is called. Let's see. If you go here to settings, and then you go to settings again, and then you go to, not really, let me see. I know here, plugins. This one, computer use, or Chrome. You can install any of those, and it's gonna do these tests with as you can see here. But I recommend doing that because the cool thing is like when in these tests, it can find bugs or stuff for you, so you don't need to be like doing it manually and stuff. So in this case, for example, he's literally going to a Google Sheet and checking the stuff like visually. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, let me see if there's something here. Nothing yet. Really, let me see. I don't see it. Oh yeah, so the code. Let me close this one so we don't get confused. So you see here that it created the files, and then I guess it put the credentials keys here, like the keys here. So just quick crash course on AppScript. Here in editor, you can add the code, and here in settings, you can check the settings, right? So here you can see here that we have, here you can see here. So here we have the keys in script properties. Those are the same keys that I got before. And then here we have the files. And then basically, if you're wondering why this structure, it's because I have an agents MD. And then that file is telling the Codex how to behave. And part of it is that it needs to create multiple files depending on each service. So for example, you can see here that we have only one file only for properties, and then we have one file only for the menu, and then one for the orders, and one for the routes. And that's just to keep the code clean. I like it that way. And also there is always one config file, which is this one. And here you kind of just input the things. So what it's doing right now is that, I mean, technically, I don't know why. I mean, the config, usually what I do is that I do it this way because you can edit this manually, right? So you go here to config and then you could change the API key or the OpenRoller API key and stuff. The things like technically, I already put them here in AppScript in properties. So I could do that here. So I think this is just redundant. We don't need it. So I will just ask him to remove that. And then let me see what else. We have the spreadsheet. This could be like useful in case you are having this code somewhere else and not in the spreadsheet here. But I mean, right now the script is connected already to the spreadsheet, so this is also redundant. But I mean, it's fine. We don't need to edit that. This will be the source sheet. So we have forms. You can see here that we have forms responses. This one. So I guess that's fine. Let's see, report prefix. Okay, that's what it's going to create after we create the report the timestamp. I don't think we need the timestamp though. And that's something that I tend to do, you know. Actually, it's pretty fun. Still going here. Yeah, so let's just see. We don't need this. Remove this from config. So we don't need the time zone. And then these two, also we don't need them because we don't need these two because we are getting them from properties, right? So just so we don't have in config. We don't need them in config. Then what else? The depot address. Well, that's important. That means that what is the address where we are starting, right? And yeah, I think we can leave this one here. That's important. Then what will be the OpenRoller model? That's also important. And the default model. I think this is kind of like the same thing. So I don't know why. I think we can remove this one. So I remove this and make to be GPT whatever. So we can use this one again, like as I explained, you can select whatever model you want here, but I would use this one because it's pretty cheap. I mean, you can do these tests for free. In case you want to scale this and have like multiple calls, like hundreds of calls or something, in that case you will need to pay OpenRoller. But let's see what else. I think with that, I don't know what is this. So we have here the headers. I mean, technically that's fine. Got it. Yeah, these are just the headers for the reports and for the orders sheet. Technically that's fine. I mean, you could also clean this if you don't need it and just have some hard-coded ones like, okay, always gonna be timestamp, so I don't need it, but I mean, it's fine. And then let me see what else we have here. So yeah, we have properties, that's fine. Actually, yeah, we're getting here the properties, I guess. So this one is for the menu. What is that? Let me see. I think created something here. Routes. Okay, so this is for building them. For building the button, so we can run it manually. Makes sense. So we can leave that. Let me see what else. So this is the logic for orders. This is for the planner. Okay. This is for calling the API. That's fine. You see, we are using this computer root matrix. So basically, it's like a matrix. You know, it kind of creates like a matrix and returns the best timings for that. But actually, I think something that I missed and is important is like setting up what is like the way we're calculating this, because at least two things here. So these two things are important, like the travel mode and the return preference. Because I will explain, let me just ask him to put this, the config, so I can edit them. I will explain. So basically, travel mode is actually, let me see, and put next to it. Yeah, next the options that I have for each. And you will see why I'm asking for this. Okay, let me see. Let's see what happened here. Yeah, no, I mean, it kind of got confused, but I mean, by options. I mean, like having it like this. So basically, let's see these two again, and then it will be like bicycle. Okay, my spelling is kind of shitty here, so bicycle, and then bicycle. And then you can sometimes explain like he's a kid walking. You see only the variable and then the options and then a comment of what the option is for, what the option is for. Well, one thing about this is that you don't need to spell everything correctly. So you can just he's smart enough to understand the meaning here. Because technically I just text. I just write. I type quickly. I don't want to be like, okay, hi. Okay, sweet. That was fast. Yeah, that's what I meant. Okay, let's see. Let's do a refresh here. Yeah, much better, right? So now it's cleaner. So now we have only the spreadsheet again. We can have it there. Then the source sheet. I mean, what I'm saying about this is like, let's say for some reason something gets corrupted, something happens, and then you need to create a new form with a new sheet. So you don't need to move all the code. You only change this ID here, and this ID is coming from here. Yeah, I think the same, right? And okay, that's something, for example, that we just got here. It was using another Google Sheet. I guess it's because it's using the one that first created, because I noticed that he created another Google Sheet, and then I told him like, let's use this one. So you can just change it here, and it will use this one that we have these tests, and then we have forums, Yeah, that's the forms responses, that's fine. And then we have here the prefix, that doesn't matter. And then the depot address. Well, I will change this once we start testing. This is the open router model. Fine, we can use with the, we can start using this one. Then the travel mode. Okay, so now what is this travel mode thing? So these are two variables that you can change using the API, the Google Maps API. And basically this is just like, how do you want this timing to be, like, you know, when it's doing these calculations, it's like when you go to Google Maps, to the app, and you type an address, right? So basically you see that down below in the, like literally up at the bottom, it shows like the options. You can go by walking, you can go by driving, you can go like, you know, taking public transport. So that's the same thing here, right? It's the same idea. Like, what is the travel mode? And based on that, it's gonna give you the time. And based on that, you can do the sorting. In this case, I'm just doing like, okay, you know, maybe my deliveries use a car. So you can just put a car here. But let's say maybe you're like, not really, I have a delivery guy and the guy is using a motorcycle. So in that case, you change it to like two-wheeler, right? Or let's say like you're like, not really, we walk. So you change that to walk here, right? That's the idea for this one. And then this routing preference, this one is more like you have the options here. You have three options. You have traffic aware, you have traffic unaware, you have traffic optimal. So traffic unaware basically is just ignoring traffic. That's simple as that, right? So just calculating this like assuming there's no traffic. Then we have traffic aware, which is like assuming there's traffic, but it's like not that exact, you know? It's just like, okay, maybe let's assume some traffic, and that's fine. But then we have the traffic aware optimal, which is like it's like really like checking the traffic real time, and then based on that, it will give you the estimation. The difference between this one and this one is how it uses resources. Because, you know, like if you start paying for this API, Google Maps, let's say you are running this like an ongoing basis because you have a lot of deliveries and stuff. And if you want to optimize later on, you will use this traffic aware. So you don't use that many, like you don't pay too much to Google Cloud. That's the idea. Because if you're like super, super exact, you might get a better response, of course, like a better estimation, but you will be spending more with Google Cloud and it will be slower doing this automation. So this is like a medium sweet spot, you know? But if you really don't care about traffic, well, you put this, of course, it's gonna be cheaper and it's gonna be faster because it's not taking into account traffic. But that's pretty much the idea here, right? So hopefully that makes sense. And that's it, right? So I think with that, we're good to go. I think we can start testing. So something that I would ask him for is, I will ask him for two things. One, I need to populate all of these orders. So I think we can test with a bunch just to, yeah, why not? So let's say create, okay, I'll start testing. So create, I don't know, maybe what? Maybe 20 orders, 20 orders. And make, I don't know, maybe 5 addresses with errors. So we can see if the AI layer catches them. Yeah. And also put some of them, maybe put 2 of them for yesterday. So we check if the address stuff works. Because again, like remember, we're only doing this for the addresses, for the orders for today. We don't want to be, you know, imagine you have like 1,000 orders and then you're like doing this calculation for 1,000 orders and maybe 900 of those orders are old. So you don't want to be like, you know, wasting a lot of resources here because we only calculate for the today's orders. I mean, yeah, whatever. He will understand. Let me see what else we need to test. Yeah, and give me an address to start. No, what's the name of it? This one. To test. And let's do this with, I don't know, like some typical, let's see, all of the, it's New York, so let's just put it like New York, so we can just test with New York. New York. Okay, so he says that, you know what, but the issue is like, I think he's confusing the Google Sheet that needs to be using. I don't know what spreadsheet you are using, but this is the one connected to the phone. Because I think he's like using another one when he created the first test, and now he's kind of like confusing all of that. Let's see. Yeah, you see, so he's using another one. He needs to use this one. And I need to delete the other one, by the way. And delete this other one, so we don't save trash. It's important that you always kind of like keep in mind this when you are like coding like this, because it's like he kind of creates a bunch of files sometimes that you don't really need, and if you're not like attentive, you will see that he created like a bunch of spreadsheets, a bunch of stuff that you didn't need. So that's why it's important, I guess, to like know the architecture first, and then you start coding instead of just asking whatever, because he will just, fill your computer with a bunch of trash. Okay, let me see. Okay, now it's fine. Oh, got it. So right now we created this. I mean, technically kind of created the same thing here as we did here. I mean, that works. I mean, so technically we don't need this anymore. Yeah. Yeah, I think he kind of like confuses a lot of stuff, Okay, whatever. So let's see. So we ask him, format the address column like the others. And also remove column F. Because yeah, I created this thinking that that they didn't that this wasn't automated already, but maybe I didn't see it because he was using another spreadsheet, so now I see it, so now it makes sense. So I will just ask him to delete this column F, and then we need also like to format this somehow. Let's see, let's refresh this. What I understand is why this is not formatted. Well, really, I mean, the header doesn't look the same. Column E. You know what I think? I think the form is connected to this, but he added this column, so he kind of messed up the formatting here. So that's why he cannot edit the formatting. But let's see. Yeah, I think that's what is going on here. Let me see if I feel something here, what happens. Yeah, bro, like he kind of messed this thing up. So let's see, look, it's wrong. Because the formula for the column B make a column G. And then you see the form is connected to AD. AD. So you added a column for the order ID, column B, and then mess up the whole thing. So delete all of that. So clear this sheet, and then add the dummy things, the dummy data using the Forms API. Like literally imitate filling the form. That's the thing, because right now what I'm think he's doing is pretty much like creating this using the Google Sheets API instead of the Forms API. And the idea is that kind of imitates someone filling the form. So that's why when I fill the form here, you see kind of like landed somewhere else, because he kind of like fucks up the whole thing here. But let's see. You see now he's checking for the correct endpoint, which is Forms and not Sheets API. That's fine. He will clean these and he will just fill out all of them. That's sweet. I need to do that. You see, this is important. He's saying here that the timestamp won't work, but he will just adjust that so we can do the testing, which is fine. Okay, I don't know why it's doing that, but I guess I can do that manually if you can't delete some of the rows. See if I adjust my camera, okay, I feel like it's a little bit too, see. Okay, I just, let's see. So supposedly this is fixed. So let's see. Okay, now it looks so much better, right? So you see that it kind of fixed this. So I think we can just hide these two here. So we still have the same formula. And then here we have the client name, the products, and the addresses. That's good. So, and you can see that this is this was filled using the imitating like a Google form, because you see like this line here, that means that it's encapsulating all the orders. So that's kind of like, that's fine. So technically that's fine. So now let's just run this. So the first time that you run this, typically this is what happens. It's gonna ask you for like authorize. So you click here in advanced, and then you click here in Google Maps API, like that. Well, that's the name of the project. You see this one here, Google Maps Live. So you click here, make sure you always select this checkbox here. Otherwise, it means that you are not giving access, so it will break. And then continue. And then I guess it's kind of like showing something here, but I didn't add it like some, well, that's fine. Yeah, you know, maybe what I wanna add is like add some toasts to the code, so I know what the code is doing along the way. Just high level stuff. Yeah, but by toasts, I mean like something here, like a notification that what the code is doing every time it's running like a function or something. So I can see, okay, because you know, like if you have a bunch of orders and you click this button, you don't know, did it run? Is it wrong? Something happened, some errors or whatever, that you don't know what's going on. So when you add like these toasts, basically it's just, you know, notifying every step of the way, and that's pretty useful. So let's see. For example, in this case, you see it was running, but you didn't even know what was going on. So, but you know, these are the two blocks. Actually, they look good. Okay, so let's just do it again. And we could delete this one. We don't need it. Delete. Okay, so let's run it. Routes. And you will see the toast here. So you see we have calculating routes for 8 orders, checking addresses with AI. Oh, wait. Got it. So right now it's checking the addresses with the So, you see now it's roots, done, reports ready. So we check the reports here. Sweet. So actually, let me see. Because we didn't change this. So let me see if he added it. So he didn't. So that's weird. So I have this in the config. Where do you get this address from? I mean, technically we could use that one. Let me just put it like this. So makes sense. So basically what he's saying is that it's having like some fallbacks, and that's another thing that you need to keep in mind with this when you are like coding like this with Codex or like Cloud or something. And it's like sometimes the logic exists, but it doesn't work. So what he does is like he implements a fallback, which is like a second layer of logic that it needs to, like, it's like an if, right? If this happens, do this. If this doesn't happen, do that. The issue is like it's adding first complexity, second trash code because you don't need it. Like you need to make sure that the logic, like the first logic works. If it doesn't work, it shouldn't like fall back. It should like literally you should fix it, right? So that's the thing. Like right now, for example, it should get the start address from here, but because it doesn't work, it kind of falls back to another thing that we don't need. So I will just ask him like, okay, I don't want fallbacks. So add that address to properties and then make sure. That's fine, right? So that's what we will do. And also remove it from config if we already have it in properties. So we don't need to, again, it's like the same thing with the two API keys that we had at the beginning, right? It was also showing them here in the config and then having them here in properties. So it's kind of like redundant. Yeah, so I think part of this job is also like doing some cleaning pretty much. Or maybe it's that I have like some ADT type of stuff and I don't like seeing that code like. Let me see. Yeah, so you see it deleted that, and now if you check properties, you see it, which is, well, it didn't add it though, so. Okay, so he's adding that now. Still not yet. But actually it's funny, he's doing it like manually. I mean, that's fine. Whatever I mean, he can use the API, or he can do it manually. It's just like, I just need it done. So you see he's adding it that manually with computer use. So actually that's pretty sweet to see it in real time. You see it like he's literally like typing stuff so you can see it. The things like using computer use tends to be slower because of, he needs to check this, what he's doing right now is pretty much like he takes a screenshot of the sheet of the screen, analyzes the screenshot, and then he was like, okay, I need to click here, I need to click there, and it kind of works. But I think when you are using an API, it's faster, right? Because it's just directly using the endpoints. So for this test, for this check, I mean, it's just one, so that's fine, right? It's cool. I can just leave it like this. But in case like you were adding, I don't know, like 100 of them, you don't want to be doing this, it's going to take hours. So always try to use the API as much as you can. And you need to explain this to Codex, like multiple times because it kind of tends to like diverge. But I mean, this is useful in case you are testing something that it needs to like go to the UI and like you want to check, like maybe you created a button somewhere and you need to make sure that when the client or the person clicks the button, it works or something happens. So in that case, you don't want to be using the API because, like it's not how the user will use the app. He will literally click the button. So in that case, you want to use computer use Playwright or something to make sure that it works, right? So in this case, he said like, okay, added it. So let's see property settings here. And we see that we have the address, right? So that's fine. So now what we're going to do is like, we're going to delete this tab. And then we're going to test again. So let me pause this for a sec. And we're going to test this again. So let's go to roots and build root. I just want to make sure that this is saved. Yeah, this is saved. So right now, roots, checking addresses with AI. And done, the report's ready. So let's go to the report again. And sweet, now it looks the same, but we know the logic is actually working, right? So we here have the root start. Okay, that's clear. Then we have here the sorter orders. And that's what we wanted. So it's sorted by time. Okay, so that this means that these addresses are fine. And then here we have the travel time, right? So this is sorted by time. Something that I'm wondering is like, why, for example, if this one is 6 minutes and this one is 4 minutes, why is it showing it as... Okay, that's a good question. Let's see. Because maybe there's some bug in the algo and we need to check that. Let me see. So why Lucas is Fermin and it's rank 10. I mean, that's actually pretty smart though. So basically the way it's working right now is that, okay, that makes sense. Yes, let me explain how it is working right now. So basically, let's open this so you can see what I think they will be simpler. So basically what it's doing is like we have like an address 1. And then we have like address 2. And it kind of calculates how long it's going to take from this to this. So in that case, it's going to take, let's say, 5 min. And then it kind of go to address 3. And then it kind of gives me like, okay, from here, it's going to take me like 2 min. So that's the order. But basically, I guess what it's doing is that we have address 1, for example. And then it kind of checks all the addresses. It checks all the addresses, and then the one that is the closest, it kind of puts that as address 2, and then it moves again, and then it does all the checks, and then again address 3, and then from there again all of them, and that's pretty much the idea what it's doing here, which is fine. It's pretty smart. So that's clear. So let me see what else we have here. So we have the addresses, so that's the order, and then this is the estimation of time. Again, like we are only using the addresses for the same day, for the orders for the same day, and then these are the addresses that we need to check. So for example, this one, incomplete address, and then it kind of gives us a suggested fix. So we need to check for this. And in this case, you know, like this is pretty sweet because you could use this and like, for example, if you have like a team that is doing this, you can be like, okay, double check with the client, with the customer, what's the number? And then he will give you the number. You go back, change the address, edit the address here, make sure it works, and then run it again, and now it will work. Let's see what else we have. We have some spelling errors here, and then we have a fake asterisk name. For example, this one is pretty useful because, you know, maybe someone was just created the order, but he didn't mean it. So you don't, like, this is a fake address. So you, in this case, you will be like, okay, this is, I mean, this person doesn't need the orders. So you can just cancel that order, delete that, and then, you know, it won't be used in the automation. And this one also needs some checks with the client. Well, that's pretty much it, right? So this is the whole logic. So you can see here that it's pretty sweet. We have the sorting working, and then we have the AI layer part here working. You could do it this way, or you can also split this into two tabs, one only being these orders and one being only the checks, in case that looks better for you. Just ask Codex to split that. But yeah, you know, guys, that's the logic, and this is the video. So I will have this template in the description, so you can just, you know, refer the code and use it if you want. Or again, you can just use Codex to add more things if you want to add more things. If you guys want some help with an automation like this, and you want me to, you know, check whatever process you have with the company, in your company, you want to replicate something like this, maybe a little more complex, or maybe you want to integrate more APIs or something, I will put my website in the first comment, so feel free to book a call and we can go through your process, and I will just suggest some ideas, and that's it, right? So let me know if you have any questions, okay? If you have any questions, just put them down below in the comments. I will reply to them as I see them. Hopefully this was helpful, and see you in the next one.